One of the most important, most foundational aspects of my growth and development over the last 4 or 5 years has been developing and then maintaining a spiritual practice. And I don't know about you, but during this whole pandemic crisis, having to quarantine, all of these shifts and changes and stress about not knowing what's going to happen and not knowing what the future is going to look like, it has been really difficult to maintain a sense of normalcy and a sense of routine. You know, I had structures in place before everything started to happen about a month and a half ago, and I've seen those structures be dismantled over time. And there's something that happens every time I make a video where I'm talking about healing, or last week's video about not doing predictive tarot readings. It really makes me reconsider the way that I am actually practicing tarot. And so I thought I would put this video together to make me reconsider the way that I am practicing spirituality and to kind of help hold myself accountable to re-implementing some structure into my day-to-day routine. So today I'm going to be talking to you about how I use a spiritual practice to keep me grounded during stressful times. So I'm still available for readings. My availability is limited, but it's still there, so feel free to check out my website down below. I have a little form that you can fill out on there to contact me so we can talk about that. I've also added a new tab to my website of resources. There's mental health resources, there's resources related to spirituality, there's resources related to kind of hacking your mindset. I've got books on there, YouTube channels, podcasts. I listed all of my favorite tarot and oracle decks. Some of the links for the books and stuff are affiliate links, so if you do happen to buy anything that's on there, I get a small little kickback. We're out here hustling, trying to make that money. So check it out, see if you like anything on there. So today I'm drinking tea, as per usual, but I shook it up this time because I didn't want to be boring. So I am drinking a green tea today. This lovely green tea makeup hand, matcha. And it's good, it's okay. I stopped drinking it when I discovered the chocolate maca, so it's been neglected for a couple weeks, but we're coming back to it because I needed something a little more mellow this morning. So here we are. So go ahead and go grab your tea, your juice, your vodka, whatever you're drinking on. And join me as we talk about how to maintain a spiritual practice during stressful times. So I've been building and kind of mix and matching and creating a spiritual practice that works for me for a while now. And similar to how I read tarot, I tend to try to keep things really practical. I tend to try to keep things really actionable, because for me, my spiritual practice is less about the kind of magic of it and is more about how is this practically helping me get through my day-to-day life. And so these 5 things I'm about to talk to you about are things that I know when I am not doing well, when I'm kind of slipping into a depressive episode, they're things that I start to neglect. And so when I notice I've been neglecting them for a while, it's time for me to go ahead and revisit, recuperate, and kind of get back into these things. So number 1, using my altar. It's really simple. When I am kind of stressed out, especially here recently, I just redid and kind of fixed up my altar last week because I realized it was starting to get dusty. And you can have lots of different kinds of altars, right? I've seen ancestor altars where people have a list of their ancestors' names and little offerings to them. I see kind of more deity specific altars where people are giving up offerings to particular gods and goddesses. Sometimes I'll do those for special occasions, but most of the time my altar is pretty consistent. I keep something to burn on there, I keep a candle, I keep my favorite jewelry items, I'll keep them on the altar, I keep my singing bowl there, I have some charms that I keep on there as well. Just different little things that make sense to me for that. And when I say using my altar, I mean interacting with it. I mean lighting the candle that's on there, right? And burning the sage or the Palo Santo or whatever I happen to have on there to burn at the time. Rearranging things periodically is really significant to me. Washing my altar cloth, being mindful about those kinds of things really keeps me intentional and grounded, because I can make it a part of my day. So I wake up in the morning, I'll go and light the candle, and then I'll go about my business, go about my day. And usually when I'm doing my tarot readings, I'm gonna do them sitting in front of the altar. And so that's another way I'm kind of interacting with it. I kind of appreciate having, especially with the candle, just a focal point to focus on when I am thinking of what to write about a particular spread, thinking about what to say. It's really nice to have the altar kind of functioning and kind of alive. And so that's something that really helps me. That's like really spiritually based, and you can get really creative with it and do whatever you want with it. But for me, I know it just really helps to ground me and kind of help me to like get up and get my day started. Number 2, being really intentional about my tarot reading. I've been reading tarot for almost 3 years now, and when I first started reading, I was really intentional about the way that I would set up my spreads. I would like make color-coded graphs of every card that I pulled, like do cool stuff like that. And I've noticed over time, especially when I'm particularly stressed out, it becomes like a really lazy activity. Like I'm sitting at the computer, I'm watching some shit on YouTube, I'm eating a snack, and I'm just like pulling cards randomly. And it's just not the same when I'm pulling cards in that particular way, when I'm kind of distracted, when there's no intention around it, when there's no real reason why I'm pulling cards. I'm just kind of pulling them to pull them. I just want to keep my hands busy. I know that that's a problem. You know, when I do readings for other people, I never do that. When I do readings for other people, I like set time aside. I know exactly when I'm gonna do it. You know, I have like a whole setup. I light my candles, I light my incense, I do my whole thing. It's like it's an event. And sometimes for myself, I get lazy and I don't do all of those things. And so when I notice over time, like I'm only doing this for other people, I'm not doing this for myself, I recognize like, okay, I need to slow down and make sure that I'm making tarot an intentional part of my day and not just like a random thing that I'm doing. And for me, what it does is it helps to ground me in time and space. Because if I have to plan ahead, like, okay, I know I need to do a reading every day, that's gonna be factored into like actually building a morning routine around that, or maybe building an evening routine around that. Knowing that, you know, I'm gonna get up in the morning, I'm gonna light the candle at my altar, you know, I'm gonna shower and get dressed, and then I'm gonna sit down and I'm going to do this reading very intentionally, maybe based on a spread that I saw online or a particular challenge that I might be participating in, or maybe, you know, we have like a full new moon coming up. So keeping my tarot readings really intentional is something that can really help me to ground as a part of my spiritual practice. Number 3, cleaning my goddamn bedroom. Now I know this one doesn't seem like spiritual. It doesn't really seem like it fits in with the other things on the list, but for me it does. I always think of everything that I own as like a sacred item. Like it's not just the stuff on the altar, it's not just the crystals and the scene bowl and the sage and stuff. That's not it. Like everything that I have serves a purpose and has a function for me, and it also like has a place that it belongs in my space. And so when my room gets to the point where it's so chaotic I have to like tiptoe around, I know we have a problem and I know it's time to do something about it. And it helps to ground me because I think everybody knows and notices like you feel better when your space is cleaner. You feel better when, you know, you can like move freely throughout your space. And I found, you know, spending so much more time in my bedroom, it's really easy for me to like mess around with a bunch of stuff throughout the day and then just like let it like stay out for days and days and days on end for no reason. I have like lots of arts and crafts I like to do, and it can get really chaotic really quickly. And so it's important for me to really be intentional about putting things back and also kind of implementing it as part of like a spiritual activity. Because when I make it spiritual, it's more fun and I'm more likely to do it. Number 4, meditation. Meditation is like the one thing that if I'm neglecting all other aspects and areas of my spiritual practice, I'm usually still meditating from time to time. I find it a really helpful practice in just like grounding me and getting me centered, kind of releasing stress. And it also finds its way into a lot of other things that I do. So before I do a tarot reading, I'm gonna meditate, and after as well. If I'm going to work, I'm definitely gonna be meditating on my lunch break. If I know I need to like send a long email about something to somebody, or if I need to like have an interaction with somebody that I'm not super jazzed about, I'm gonna meditate beforehand. You know, I'm certified Reiki level 1. I found that adding Reiki to my meditative practice has really helped me to silence my mind more effectively, and also helped me to get into my body more easily, which is something that has been really difficult for me in the past, but is getting easier now. I haven't had any tea this whole time. And last, ooh, the sun came out, come on. And last, but absolutely not least, is moon rituals. So a moon ritual can be about as witchy as you want it to be. I like to keep track of where the moon is at because it helps me to keep track of time. I know it's really easy, especially when all of my days start to blend together, or if I'm, not feeling the greatest, having a particularly depressed section of life. If I am at least keeping track of where the moon is, I know how much time has passed. I'm just more aware of things. I used to, when I was younger, I would be blindsided by my period literally every time it came. I'd be like, oh, that's happening again. I thought it just happened yesterday. But when I'm keeping track of the moon cycles, I'm usually just more in tune with my body and more in tune with everything. And so a moon ritual can really implement all of the things that I just mentioned. With a moon ritual, I am much more intentional about setting up my altar, and I usually add extra things to it around the time of a full or a new moon. So I'm interacting with my altar more often. I'm going to be doing a specific tarot reading that's just for the themes of that full or new moon. I'm going to be, setting and writing down intentions. I always clean my space before a full or new moon, and I usually will start cleaning slowly because I like to take my time. So I'll do a deep clean a few days before and just do it slowly over the few days before leading up to that full or new moon. And so that's another way to kind of keep me grounded and keep me intentional about the way that I'm existing in my space, and also about the way that I am interacting with time and space by keeping track of the moon cycles. It's also a really helpful way to kind of get accustomed with astrology, because I'm learning how that works right now, and I think the moon is a really great place to start because the moon is moving so quickly, and so you can take way more notes on just all of the aspects that the moon is making to other planets. And it moves through the zodiac so quickly, so every few days you've got a new interaction to kind of puzzle on, think about, write down. Speaking of new and full moons, there's a new moon in Gemini coming up on the 22nd. I think it goes direct at let me check. I have this lovely astro planner. 10:38 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on Friday, the 22nd of May in Gemini. That'll be fun. That'll be exciting. I think it's a solar eclipse too, if I'm not mistaken. And I wanted to pull a card, as one does. So I'm going to use my Akamara Tarot. This is the lovely bag. It's a little linty, but we're here. It's a really cool deck. I'll put a link down below to it. It's based on African diasporic traditions, and the person who put it together is a lovely human being. She also has a little apothecary shop where she sells different soaps and stuff that you can check out. So I'll put her information down below because I think it's a really cool thing that she's got going on there. Alright, so I've pulled this lovely card. Baba Kauri is also known as the King of Pentacles. Pentacles has to deal with earth. It's a very grounded suit, which is funny because I'm sitting here talking about how to ground. Baba Kauri reminds us to lean into that which makes us feel secure. He reminds us of the resource that we have available to us, the power that we have available to us, that kind of comes from having a solid, I don't want to say ground to stand on, but kind of just a solid sense of self. That's really what the King of Pentacles makes me think of. Solid sense of self, very sure of self, very grounded. There's kind of a rounded kindness to King of Pentacles energy. So think on that, meditate on that, but mostly focus on grounding things, I would say, for the new moon in Gemini. Because Gemini can be really airy, really up in the head. I have a Gemini rising, so I feel it. And it's just moving a mile a minute constantly. And I think Mercury is the ruler of Gemini and Virgo. Yeah, Mercury will be in Gemini by then. So it's going to be a heavy Gemini-esque moon, and then it's an eclipse too. So stay grounded. Wear your red. Look up the root chakra meanings. Eat the gravy. I always think of eating heavier foods to kind of help ground, but don't eat too much of the heavier foods because you might ground yourself more than you were intending to. But yeah. That is all I have for you today. I really hope this was helpful. I find that it, at the very least, was helpful for me in just reminding myself of what those things are that I can do to ground. And also, I find that when I first started just walking and trying to figure out what a spiritual practice meant, what it looked like what it entailed, I had a hard time figuring out what to do because I didn't really connect with a lot of the things that people were talking about. Because I'm not a super like, I'm a spiritual person, but not in the really kind of magical sense. It's just, it doesn't vibe with me. It's not really what I'm about. And so I was having a hard time connecting with it. But I think making it really practical, really actionable, and really like tangible, and really locked into space and time really helps me then to kind of interact with spirituality in a more meaningful and helpful way, and also helps me to be consistent with it and appreciate the benefits, the mental health benefits, if you will. But yeah, thanks so much for tuning in. Please like it, comment, subscribe, all that good shit.